I always pretended I didn't envy other people's families. But then Ava invited me over for dinner. Her parents were so warm and genuine, making me feel truly accepted. Yet, when they asked about my love life, I denied everything out of deep-seated fear, and that's when it hit me. More than being alone, I was terrified because I had long stopped believing I was worthy of love. For Anna, I threw away my golden ticket to Yale. Then I overheard her laughing with her friends, saying, "That damn nerd James? I've had him wrapped around my little finger for ages, and he loves every second of it." I never confronted her. I just quietly tossed every childish fantasy I had about love into the garbage. As an orphan, my only option was to bury myself in books. I ended up at UCLA and got into the university's most prestigious research lab. Much later, I heard she called off her own engagement party, announcing in front of everyone that I was the one, her unforgettable first love. She shamelessly threw away everything she had just to come after me. But by then, I already had Ava, the most beautiful and considerate girlfriend I could ever ask for. I had already sworn to give her the world. "James, I've been staring at this problem forever, and I just don't get it. Can you help me?" The girl in front of me had exquisite features, flawless pale skin, and eyes that curved into crescents when she smiled. Her gentle, friendly expression made it impossible not to lower your guard. Her beauty was so striking it made me freeze for a second. "Huh? Oh, yeah, of course." I snapped out of it, forcing my racing thoughts back into focus. I grabbed a pen and started scribbling the steps on a piece of scratch paper. See, if you convert the expression to its logarithmic form first, it gets a lot easier to solve. Anna's eyes lit up instantly. "James, you're a genius. If I were half as smart as you, I'd be a shoo-in for Yale." Anna and I first met in the library. Sunlight streamed through the towering floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow on my table. It was already buried under a thick fortress of books. The air was quiet, filled with the faint, pleasant smell of old paper. The only sound was the soft rustle of pages turning. I was so lost in my reading that I had tuned out the entire world. That is, until a loud thud from a dropped book on the next table shattered my concentration. I glanced over and saw her standing by the opposite shelf, looking at me with a slightly embarrassed expression. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize anyone was over here," Anna said, her voice soft and apologetic. I gave a casual wave. "Don't worry about it. A library this huge is bound to have some noise. You're James, right? I recognize you," she said, clearly looking for a way to keep the conversation going. I looked up, racking my brain, but I couldn't for the life of me remember a girl this pretty. "I don't think I know you," I said honestly. She just laughed softly. "The legendary James. Aimanna. Don't you ever pay attention to who comes in second place right after you on every grade report?" As soon as she said it, a fuzzy memory sparked in my mind. It seemed that on every single report card, the name listed right below mine was in fact Anna. After that first encounter in the library, I started seeing Anna everywhere. "James, I actually solved the final challenge problem on the math test," she exclaimed, running up to me, practically bursting with excitement. "No way. That's incredible," I said, genuinely happy for her. Now the pressure's on me. I'll have to work hard to keep up. She beamed, her eyes curving into little crescents that seemed to shine. Little moments like that became a regular part of our days. After she transferred into my homeroom and asked to sit next to me, the space between us shrank. My feelings for her slowly began to drift from simple friendship into something else entirely. Growing up in the group home, I never really knew what it felt like to be cherished. But Anna's radiant smile slowly pulled me into the deep end of crush. I had no idea how to love someone, so I just did it the only way I knew how, clumsily trying to grant her every single wish. "James, your breakfast looks amazing. Could you grab one for me next time?" "James, I'm totally lost on this problem. Can you walk me through it?" "James, can I copy your notes from last period? Taking them myself is such a pain." Every time she'd look up at me, her bright, clear eyes would sparkle, and a smile would play on her lips. I'd automatically nod yes to whatever she asked, without a second of hesitation. Looking back, I must have been completely out of my mind. The stipend from the group home was barely enough to live on, let alone buy extra things for Anna. If I wanted to spend money on her, I had to earn it myself. Luckily, being the top student for 2 years straight landed me a part-time tutoring gig. I tutored for hours almost every day after school. Most nights, I wouldn't get back to my room at the group home until close to midnight. When my roommate, Ethan, found out, he just shook his head. Dude, you're a total simp. And maybe he was right. Maybe I was a simp. So what? I was genuinely happy. The second morning study hall ended. I'd raced to the school store to get breakfast for Anna. One day, on my way back to class, I saw Duncan, the school's resident jerk, walking out of our classroom. I had no idea why he'd be there. Well, the nerd's on another breakfast run for Anna, he said, his eyes landing on the bag in my hand. He had a knowing, unpleasant smirk on his face. A weird, uncomfortable feeling settled in my gut, though I couldn't place why. I decided to just ignore him, walking straight past and into the classroom. James, you actually got them. The bagels from that shop I mentioned yesterday. You're the best. Anna's voice was as bright and cheerful as always. Her voice was as clear and sweet as morning dew. I didn't answer right away, just watched her quietly. She seemed to sense my strange mood and asked with a smile, "What's up? Did you stay up all night studying again?" I ignored the question. After a moment's hesitation, I asked quietly, "Was Duncan here to see you just now?" Her smile faltered for a split second, a flicker of awkwardness crossing her face. "Oh, him. We used to be in the same class. He was just asking if I wanted to go to his birthday party this weekend, but I told him no. He invited everyone from our old class, so it would have been weird not to ask me. But you know I'm spending the weekend at the library studying with you, right?" She said it with a playful, almost flirty tone, but she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. I took a deep breath, and a knot of anxiety in my chest loosened. "Oh, okay. That makes sense." Seeing my obvious relief, Anna's smile returned, even brighter than before. "Of course. Getting into Yale is the most important thing in my life right now, isn't it?" She gave my shoulder a light, familiar pat as she spoke. We had already made a pact. We would both get into Yale, move to New Haven together, and build our future side by side. Speaking of Yale, Mr. Harrison, my guidance counselor, began, his face stern. "Are you absolutely sure you want to give up your spot in the state competition?" His stare was so intense, it was almost frightening. I shrugged, trying to look nonchalant. "You're the one who always told us to make our own choices, Mr. Harrison," I said, trying for a lighthearted tone. "I'm just choosing not to participate. Do you understand what you're doing? Placing in this competition is practically a guaranteed ticket to Yale," he pressed, his voice growing heavier. "This is the only direct path our school gets." I knew he wasn't angry, just genuinely worried about my future. "Mr. Harrison, my grades are good enough to get into Yale without the competition," I said. "Competing or not won't really change anything for me." I tried to sound calm and logical, but even I could hear the evasiveness in my own voice. Mr. Harrison sighed, pulling a cloth from his pocket and slowly cleaning his glasses. "With your academic record, getting into Yale is almost a certainty," he conceded. "But you know how much weight this competition carries. To just throw it away is a massive loss." I just shook my head, trying to keep my face a mask of calm. "I really don't care about that, sir." He was quiet for a moment before letting out a defeated sigh, realizing he couldn't change my mind. "All right then, go get Anna," he said. "If you're not taking the spot, it's hers." Yale was Anna's ultimate dream. I knew she'd be over the moon about this. I made my way through the noisy hall to her desk and tapped her shoulder. "Anna, Mr. Harrison wants to see you." "Huh? Me? What for?" she asked, looking up with a puzzled expression. "It's probably about the competition. Maybe he's finally giving up his top spot for you, Anna." A guy next to her joked with a wolf whistle. "Oh, stop it," she giggled, her laugh bright and clear as water. "You should go," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Don't keep him waiting." But a knot formed in my stomach as I watched her skip happily toward the office, and my spirits plummeted. It was a strange feeling, a mix of genuine happiness for her and an unspoken, bitter ache. But when I saw her walk out of the office, clutching the registration form and smiling so brightly she seemed to glow, I quietly told myself, This is for the best. Anna came bouncing over to me, her eyes shining, but there was a hint of unease behind them. Seeing that conflict in her expression made my chest tighten. That spot in the competition, Mr. Harrison set it aside for you, didn't he? We were standing by the field on a crisp autumn day, and her voice cut clearly through the rhythmic thud of a nearby basketball game. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry, unable to form a single word. She seemed to notice my discomfort, but instead of pulling back, she grew even more excited, like she'd just won the lottery. "You gave it up for me on purpose, didn't you?" she asked, her eyes crinkling at the corners as she waited for my confirmation. I just made a quiet sound, not quite a yes, but not a no either. My emotions were a tangled mess. "Thank you," she said, and then, before I could react, she leaned in, gave me a quick, light hug, and whispered the words against my ear. I froze, completely unsure of what to do with my hands. I just stood there, stunned, as the ends of her hair brushed against my cheek. The touch was soft and warm, like the lightest feather. Before I could even process it, she pulled away. It was as if that brief moment of closeness was just borrowed, something she had to return immediately. All I was left with was a hollow, lingering sense of loss. But she was already smiling again, her voice full of her usual playful teasing. "Well, since you did me such a huge favor, you're now officially my personal assistant. From now on, if my homework gets messy or I lose it, my trusty sidekick will be in charge of fixing it all for me." How could I say no when she was looking at me and smiling like that? Even the most hardened heart would soften at that sight. I agreed without a second thought, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. That weekend, I arrived at the coffee shop right on time, my pocket filled with the math notes I'd stayed up all night preparing for her. The place was busy, so I navigated around the noisy crowds, found a quiet corner, and forced myself to look casual. And then I heard her voice from inside. "Can you guys believe it? The idiot actually gave up his spot in the state competition for me. Give it another month, tops. He'll definitely ask me out. He's already bringing me breakfast every single day." "Wow, I thought the nerd would hold out a little longer than that," one of them said. "Please," another voice chimed in. "Who doesn't end up falling for Anna?" The voices were crystal clear. It was her, surrounded by her friends, including Duncan and a couple of other kids I didn't know. The look on her face was so foreign, I barely recognized her. It was like she was a completely different person. I just stood there, frozen, each word a tiny needle stabbing into my chest, my heart plummeting with every syllable. I just watched her laugh so freely, so carelessly. Everything I had done for her, all my sacrifices and all my feelings, were nothing more than a joke to her and her friends. "A game. Okay, you guys should go," she said, waving them off. "He'll be here any minute, and I want to keep the act going a little longer." Just as she finished the sentence, her eyes met mine through the window. I stared at her, my expression cold as ice. Her face froze, and a flash of shock widened her eyes. She was the one who had been lying to me, yet her expression was one of pure panic. Wasn't this the outcome she'd planned all along? Who was this sudden show of guilt even for? Her friends noticed me too, and their laughter died down until there was only a heavy, suffocating silence. Anna opened her mouth as if to say something, to explain, but no words came out. "Well, nerd, since you heard everything, I guess there's no point in keeping up the act," Duncan finally said, breaking the dead silence. "Just make it clean. Cut ties with Anna. What does this have to do with you?" I shot back, my voice ice. "What does it have to do with me?" Duncan sneered, pulling Anna possessively into his arms. "Did you honestly think you were ever in her league?" he taunted, a cruel smile on his face. "You have any idea who her father is? He's the CEO of the board." Duncan stepped closer. "What gave you the insane idea that his daughter would ever fall for a nobody from a group home?" I snapped my head toward Anna. No one else knew I was an orphan. She was the only one I'd told. But she just turned her face away, refusing to meet my eyes. That tiny movement sent the spike of betrayal driving even deeper into my chest. A red-haired girl, standing next to her, scoffed. "Get a clue. Anna and my brother are the real deal. They're practically engaged. You should probably accept that now before you embarrass yourself even more. I noticed the family resemblance between her and Duncan. She had to be his sister. There was no reason for me to stay another second. I turned and walked away from the place where every single one of my dreams had just been shattered. The next thing I knew, I was standing at the door of the group home. When I walked in, my roommate Ethan was on his bed, scrolling through his phone. He shot up the second he saw me. "There you are. You've been like a ghost the last few days, man. Nobody knew where you went." He rambled as he got closer. "Dude, did you know Anna is the CEO's daughter? Don't say I'm not a good wingman. I got the full scoop on everything she likes. A whole dossier. Just call me Daddy, and it's all yours." He trailed off, sensing something was wrong. He looked me up and down. "What's up? You found out she's rich, and now you're feeling insecure." "Oh, come on. I thought it was something serious," he said, waving it off. "Just relax, man. If she doesn't care, it's not a problem. You're just dating, not getting married. She'll probably go study abroad, and you'll break up anyway." "What did you just say? Study abroad?" I cut him off. Ethan stared at me, completely baffled. "You seriously didn't know? Her family has had it planned for ages. The second she graduates, she's heading overseas for college. She's already taken her SATs for it and everything." I felt completely hollow, nothing left but a dull ache in my chest. So all that talk about wanting to go to Yale with me, it was all just an excuse. A lie to get close to me. And I was stupid enough to hand over my one shot at the state competition for those empty words. Every little detail from the past few months now felt like a cruel joke at my expense. It all made sense now. Why she insisted on transferring into my class and sitting next to me when she was doing perfectly fine where she was. Why she looked so happy but also so uncomfortable the day she got the competition spot. I'd assumed she felt guilty for taking my spot. And when I asked why Duncan was in our classroom, she'd invented that story about a birthday party. Thinking back, his birthday was 3 months ago. The school jerk and the rich heiress. Of course they'd be mixed up in drama. How could I have been so blind? Maybe I wasn't blind. Maybe I just chose not to see it because I trusted her. But once that trust shattered like glass, all the ugly truths I had chosen to ignore were suddenly staring me right in the face. Monday morning, back to school. I was the first one in the classroom, as always, only this time the lights were already on. The moment she heard my footsteps, Anna shot up from her seat. Let me explain. I walked right up to her desk, my voice chillingly calm. "The registration form for the competition. You haven't turned it in yet, have you? Give it to me." She scrambled through her bag and quickly handed it over. "I'm so sorry. I never even needed." "You can go now," I said, cutting her off. I had never used a voice like that with her before. The color drained from her face, and her lips trembled. She managed to stammer. "James, I said you can go." I repeated, my voice flat. "Go back to your old class. Go back to your friends." She didn't move, just stared at me with that pathetic, pleading look. A hot flash of anger rose in my chest. "Did you ever think this would happen when you made that bet?" I snapped. "I'm not chasing you. I'm not trying to get revenge. Isn't that enough for you? Or do you want to keep playing your little games with me?" She looked even more horrified. "No, it wasn't like that. I was just running my mouth. You know that I—" "Enough," I said, cutting her off again. "You knew exactly how much that competition meant to me. But you, an heiress who's had everything handed to her on a silver platter, you don't need it. And yet you took it all for a stupid bet without a second thought. Didn't you?" Her lips trembled as if she was about to say more, but I stopped her before she could start. I looked her straight in the eye and said, enunciating every word, "I will never trust you again." Then I turned and walked out of the room. The days that followed felt as if Anna had never existed. I went back to Mr. Harrison, and even after all my flip-flopping, he patiently listened to me and agreed to let me re-enter the competition. This time, I understood better than ever how precious this second chance was. I swore to myself I would never again sacrifice my future for anyone. The competition finally began. I took a bus to a city I'd never been to before. I checked into the hotel, but I felt a strange sense of unease. The day before the event, the pressure was so intense I could barely breathe. I decided to get out of the hotel and walk around the nearby park to clear my head. I stepped into the elevator and came face to face with Ava, my rival from the other top high school in the district. On second thought, it made perfect sense. We were always ranked number 1 and 2 in the city. We were constantly running into each other at these academic competitions, so her being here wasn't a surprise at all. "Fancy seeing you here," I said casually. "Coincidence, my ass." Ava shot back with a smirk. I heard a certain someone almost dropped out of this competition. I came to see just how dumb he was and maybe laugh in his face. So the whole ugly story had already made the rounds. I was stunned for a second, shocked at how fast the news had traveled. Ava took one look at my surprised face and just laughed out loud. "Oh, give me a break, Romeo," she teased. "It's a rare sight to see you so completely love-struck." We found an empty meeting room to sit and talk for a while. Being with someone I knew helped the tension in my shoulders finally release. We ended up quizzing each other, running through problems from old exams. After a while, Ava rubbed her eyes and stretched. "It's getting late," she said. "We should get some sleep. Tomorrow's the main event. Even though we're rivals, I want you to be at your best when you compete against me." Back in my room, I fell asleep almost instantly. Her words echoed in my head all night. The competition itself went by in a blur. To my surprise, I was in the zone, performing better than I ever had. I even nailed 2 of the obscure problems Ava and I had gone over the night before. I guess that last-minute cram session really paid off. Walking out of the exam room, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a sense of relief I hadn't felt in a long time. "First place. You made the state team," Mr. Harrison said, holding the official notice and staring at me like I'd grown a second head. I scratched my head, a little embarrassed. "I guess that means Yale is a sure thing now," he added. "You should get that application in." "No, I'm choosing UCLA this time," I told him. Yale had been Anna's dream, the one she talked about endlessly. But my dream, the thing I was genuinely passionate about, was the computer science program at UCLA. This time, with a guaranteed spot, I could finally choose what I really wanted. With my counselor's help, life got a lot easier. I picked up a few well-paying tutoring gigs, and once the parents found out I was headed to UCLA, they treated me with a new level of respect and kindness. But somehow, Ava started popping up everywhere in my life, like a shadow I couldn't shake. She came from a modest background, but she had this bright, infectious energy that lit up every room she entered. "James!" I was in the director's office at the group home, helping sort through some files. I heard her voice before I saw her. Ava's family lived just down the street, and her parents often brought her over to play with the kids and help out, so we were all used to seeing her around. The director glanced at the doorway and chuckled. "Let me guess, you're here for James again, aren't you, Ava?" Ava scratched her head, a little embarrassed, and whispered with a grin, "You caught me, ma'am. Those 2 problems James helped me with were on the test. Now my mom is insisting we have him over for dinner to say thank you, and she wouldn't take no for an answer." The director turned to me. "Go on then. We're not in a rush here. Don't keep the poor girl waiting." I had no choice but to set down the files and follow Ava outside. "My mom is making her famous sweet and sour ribs just for you," she said. "You have no idea what a big deal that is. She's never made them just for me. I only get to eat them tonight because you're coming." Ava chattered excitedly as she bounced along beside me, the sunlight catching her in a way that made her seem to glow. I was getting a little lost in her words and had to cut in. "Hey, I can't show up at your house empty-handed. Let me grab something for your mom first." My dorm building was just ahead. I jogged over, but as I reached for the door, I saw someone was already standing there. Hearing my footsteps, she looked up sharply. It was Anna. "James, I heard you got early admission to UCLA," she said. Just then, Ava caught up to us, slightly out of breath. "Hey, why'd you run off so fast? My mom's not in that big of a rush." Anna's face fell the moment she heard Ava's words. "You 2 are together?" I was shocked that Anna had found my dorm, but then I remembered. With her father's connections, finding a student's address would be child's play. Honestly, I wanted nothing to do with Anna. Ava, on the other hand, seemed to find the whole situation amusing. She tugged on my sleeve with a playful grin. "Well, James, we do have a date to meet my parents today. But since this young lady seems to have something important to say, I'll let you handle your business. I can wait, but don't you leave me hanging for too long." I felt a shiver run down my arm, but I understood her message loud and clear. "Don't worry," I told her. "I said I was coming with you today, and I'm not changing my mind." Anna stomped her foot in frustration, her eyes welling up with tears before she turned and ran off. I went into my room, grabbed a box of pastries I'd bought as a gift, and then headed out with Ava toward her house. Ava, however, wasn't about to let it go. "So, that was Anna," she started. "She's actually, well," she paused for a beat before admitting, "she's really pretty." Over the last few days, I'd started to realize how Ava felt about me. But whenever I thought about my past with Anna, looking back with a clear head, I realized I couldn't put all the blame on her. I didn't know the first thing about her. We came from completely different worlds, yet there I was, naively trying to build a future with her. Growing up without parents, I had no concept of what a normal relationship even looked like. So when I fell for someone, I just followed her blindly. I never thought about improving myself first, or about what it would take to build something healthy for both of us. A messed up guy like me had no business going after someone as bright as Ava. I took a deep breath and forced myself to say it. "Yeah, that was a girl I used to like." Ava just shrugged. "So what? I don't think I'm any less than her." She had this bold, bright energy that was completely infectious. She was one of a kind. There was no need to compare her to anyone. "But you know my situation," I said. "I grew up in the system. Your parents would never approve of you being with me. I have no family, no money. Who would want their daughter dating a guy like that?" My words didn't seem to faze her in the slightest. "So what if you're an orphan? What makes you so sure my parents won't approve?" "They just won't," I insisted. "I've never really been loved before," I confessed. "I'd be a terrible boyfriend." Ava looked at me, her expression more serious than I'd ever seen it. "James, don't say that. My parents have been bringing me to volunteer at the group home since I was a little kid. In my eyes, there's no difference between you and me. Yes, you didn't have parents' love, but that's not the only kind of love there is. You have the director who cares about you. You have friends like Ethan. That's all love, too. The more you're surrounded by it, the more you'll naturally learn how to give it back. So, why don't you just try liking me for a start?" she suggested. "Maybe then you can learn how to accept it when someone likes you back." Her words shot through me like a current of warmth, giving me a spark of courage I'd never felt before. But the thought of meeting her parents still filled me with dread. Would they really be okay with their daughter dating a guy like me? I mumbled, "Maybe we should wait. Your parents might not approve right now, so let's not get ahead of ourselves." Ava just snorted, amused. "You just wait. Tonight at dinner, my parents are going to treat you like you're made of gold." When we got to her house, I nervously placed the box of pastries on the coffee table. "Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller, hello." Mrs. Miller was just bringing the last dish to the table. "Perfect timing," she said with a warm smile. "Go wash up. Dinner's ready." The atmosphere at the table was so easy and lively. Mr. and Mrs. Miller and Ava all took turns sharing funny stories from their day. They kept piling food onto my plate, a huge rib one moment, a scoop of vegetables the next, until it was overflowing. Watching how naturally and warmly they interacted, I couldn't stop a thought from creeping in. I wish this was my family. I immediately pushed it away, cursing myself for being a fool. "Mr. Miller, Mrs. Miller, please, no more," I pleaded. "I really can't eat another bite." Ava nudged me with her elbow. "See," she whispered. "Told you they'd love you." After dinner, I offered to help with the dishes, but Mr. Miller waved me off. "Nope, leave it. That's my job, and nobody's taking it from me." Mrs. Miller then turned to Ava. "Go on, give her father a hand." Ava gave her mom a playful salute. "Yes, ma'am," she chirped before skipping into the kitchen. That left just me and Mrs. Miller in the living room. She slowly peeled a tangerine and offered me a slice. The simple, kind gesture caught me off guard, but I took it carefully. Just as I was about to eat it, she asked, "So, are you and Ava dating?" I nearly choked. I quickly waved my hands in denial. No, I wouldn't dare think of Ava that way." Mrs. Miller just smiled. "It would be okay if you were. We've watched you grow up over the years. You're a good, honest kid, and we can tell Ava has feelings for you, too. She hasn't stopped smiling for weeks. Honestly, she can't go 3 sentences without bringing you up. It's always James this and James that. A tiny spark of hope lit up inside me. Could they really not care about my background? But then her tone shifted. But she said, my heart sank. But what? I asked. She gave me a slightly pained smile. I heard you used to have feelings for another girl. If you aren't serious about Ava, then please, just let her go now. Don't string her along. I sat up straight. Mrs. Miller, it's not like that. I really, truly care about Ava. You do? She asked. I nodded emphatically. You do. Mrs. Miller broke into an all-knowing smile. All right, Ava, you can stop eavesdropping now. I then realized the running water in the kitchen had stopped, and I could see 2 blurry shapes through the frosted glass of the sliding door. At her mom's words, Ava had no choice but to slide the door open, her face as red as a tomato. After Ava and I made it official, I joined a research project with the state academic team. The invitation came from a young professor at UCLA's cybersecurity lab. I'd always been fascinated by cybersecurity, and I knew it was a field with a huge future. The research group also came with a stipend, and if we developed anything significant, we could get royalties from a patent or sell it directly to a tech company. I knew I had to keep getting stronger if I wanted to have the confidence to give Ava a better life. She was like a beacon, guiding me out of the fog and back onto the right path. In September, Ava started her freshman year, and we met again on the UCLA campus. She was a finance major, but she'd always swing by my lab when she had a break. The older students in the lab loved teasing us about it. But one day, the lab had an unexpected visitor. James. I never thought I'd hear that voice or see Anna on this campus. The shock on my face was impossible to hide. She told me she hadn't gone to the Ivy League school her parents planned for her. She had gotten into UCLA on her own merits. I know it's pathetic for me to keep showing up like this, but she trailed off, but her eyes said the rest. I sighed internally. If she could treat me like a joke back when I adored her, why was she putting herself through this now? A connection this broken and delayed was never meant to last. She opened her mouth to say more, but her phone started ringing. She gave me an apologetic look and stepped away to take the call. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught words like engagement and you need to come back. By the time she hung up, my mind was made up. Don't come looking for me again, I said. You're getting engaged soon, right? I wish you and Duncan all the best. Then I turned and walked back into the lab. A grad student saw me come back in. Who was that, James? He teased. An old flame? Don't let it mess things up with you and Ava. I just laughed it off. I told Ava the whole story that night, and I was so grateful for how completely she trusted me. A few days later, I got a bizarre, anonymous text message. It just said, wait for me. I was still puzzling over it when my phone rang again. It was Ethan. He was a year behind me, a senior in high school now, with grades that were, to put mildly, not great. I braced myself for whatever nonsense he was about to spout. Yo, call me daddy, and I'll give you some explosive gossip, he started. Just spit it out, or I'm hanging up, I said. He immediately caved. Okay. Just open the video I sent you on iMessage. I opened the message, and a video started playing. It showed a lavish hotel ballroom, filled with guests in tuxedos and evening gowns. It was obviously an engagement party. The camera was shaky, but it finally focused on a large screen on the stage. An elegant script, it read, Duncan Anna. It was their engagement party. My first instinct was to shut it off. I had zero interest in watching this. But Ethan's voice came urgently through the phone. Wait, dude, keep watching. Now I was curious, so I let it play. As the video continued, the atmosphere in the room grew tense, and a crowd started to gather. It was time for the ring exchange. Duncan stood on stage in a perfectly tailored suit, a smug, confident smile plastered on his face. Anna, in a stunning red dress, stood beside him, her expression grim. The moment the officiant began, Anna grabbed the microphone. No, she declared. I'm not doing this. And with that, she turned and ran off the stage. I was speechless. What the? I finally managed. Ethan jumped in. And do you know why she called it off? Why? It can't possibly be because of me, can it? As a matter of fact, it is, Ethan said, pausing for dramatic effect. I was working a catering gig at the hotel tonight. I overheard her in the dressing room, having a huge fight with her parents. She told them she's already in love with someone else, someone who's at UCLA right now. Dude, who else could she possibly be talking about? I felt like I was in a daze. She had actually called off her engagement, right there, because of me. I thought about that "wait for me" text, and a sick feeling started to grow in my stomach. Sure enough, the next afternoon, the moment I stepped out of the lab, a figure came rushing toward me. It was Anna. She was still in the red dress from the party, her makeup smeared, looking completely exhausted and frantic. "James, I called it off," she pleaded. "I called off the engagement. Can you please forgive me? Can we start over?" I instinctively took a step back. "Anna, I always thought you were smarter than this." She gave a bitter laugh. "I thought if I just did what my parents wanted, went back to my old life, I could forget everything. But I can't forget you. I've broken off with Duncan. I've given all up." I sighed and shook my head. "Don't be ridiculous, Anna. We're not kids anymore. You can't go back." "Why not?" she suddenly screamed, her voice shaking with rage. I'd never seen her this unhinged. "You gave up the state competition for me, so I can give up everything for you. We're supposed to be together." "Anna, maybe I wasn't clear enough before," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "The day I found out you only got close to me for a bit, that was the day ended for us. A relationship that starts with a lie can never have a happy ending." Her eyes welled up with tears, and her voice grew hoarse. "Are you really going to be this cruel? I have nothing left now. I only have you." I sighed again. "I'm sorry." She latched onto my words like a drowning person. "So you forgive me?" I shook my head again. "I still can't be with you. Of course, if you're ever in real trouble and need help, I'll be there. But that's it. That's the best we can hope for both of us." Her eyes were completely bloodshot. "It's because of her, isn't it? Because of Ava. I'm not giving up." I turned to walk away, but I glanced back one last time. There was a wild, obsessive look in her eyes, like she was right on the edge of breaking. My professor had just started a new research project, and the whole lab was working nonstop. I had less and less time to spend with Ava. By the time I realized something was wrong, the project was almost finished. I tried to make plans with Ava for dinner, but she canceled on me several times in a row. It was so unlike her that a deep sense of unease began to grow. I finally called her roommate, and she told me the truth. Ava had been in a car accident. She was in the hospital. My mind went blank. I raced to the hospital. I found her in her room, with her mom sitting by the bed. Ava looked surprised to see me. "Look at you. You're a wreck," she said. "It's really not a big deal. Just some cuts and bruises. You've been so busy, I didn't want to worry you," she explained. A wave of guilt and anger washed over me. "I'm killing myself on this project so I can give you a better life. What's the point of any of this? What am I to you if you can't even tell me when something like this happens?" Just then, Mrs. Miller called my name. "James, can I speak to you outside for a moment?" In the hallway, she lowered her voice. I didn't want to say this in front of her, but "Do you know who was driving the car that hit her?" I was confused. Wasn't it an accident? Her expression hardened. "It was that girl you used to like, Anna. It was a hit and run. She's still missing." The image of Anna's wild, obsessive eyes flashed in my mind. It all made sense. "Mrs. Miller, don't worry," I said, my voice. "I'll handle this. I will never let anyone hurt Ava like this again." The moment I left the hospital, I dialed the unknown number that had texted me waiting. It picked up almost immediately. "Why did you do it?" I demanded. "Why did you hit Ava?" There was a 2-second pause, then her voice sharp and high-pitched. "It's her fault. She's the reason you won't be with me." "This has nothing to do with her," I shot back. "If you have a problem, you deal with it. Leave her out of it. We need to meet. We need to settle this." The line was silent for a long 30 seconds. Then, she said, "Tomorrow, 5 p.m., come to this address." A location pin immediately followed my advice. I arrived at the address right on time. Before I could even knock, the door flew open and I was yanked inside. It was Anna. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she was wound as tight as a string. She handed me a glass of water. If Ava was gone, she asked, would you come back to me? I took a sip, and a strange chemical taste immediately flooded my mouth. Anna, don't make this any worse, I warned. Worse? She let out a chilling laugh. I made mistakes before, yes. But right now, I know exactly what I'm doing. As she spoke, she began to slowly remove her jacket, and a fresh wave of dread washed over me. I lunged for the doorknob, but it was locked tight. A burning heat was spreading through my veins. My skin felt like it was scorching from the inside out. It's just a little vodka mixed in your water, she said coolly. You always were a lightweight. I gritted my teeth, fighting to stay conscious. My body was betraying me, but my mind was still clear. I just had to hold on. A few moments later, the wail of police sirens cut through the air. I had called them before I arrived. There was no way I was letting her get away with what she did. The police burst in and took her into custody. As they led her away, she looked back at me, her eyes filled with utter despair. So there's really no chance for us? She whispered. I couldn't stop myself from answering. Just stop, Anna. Please. Anna was convicted for the hit and run. I never visited her in prison. I wanted nothing more to do with her. The day I left the police station, I went straight to a jewelry store. I picked out a ring, spending nearly every dollar I had in my name. Then I went to the hospital. In her room, in front of her mom and everyone else, I got down on one knee beside her bed. Ava, I said, my voice shaking slightly. Will you marry me? The girl I loved more than anything, her eyes shining with tears, looked at me and nodded. Yes, she whispered, I will. This is more than a love story. It's a story about the redemption of self-worth. James's journey shows us that some love is a consuming transaction that demands sacrifice, while true love is the unconditional acceptance that allows you to simply be yourself. At its heart, the story's message is this. Before you meet the one who will nurture you, you must first believe that you are worthy.